Regime change was one of our themes for this year, and it looks like we're getting ready to have the battle. Let's talk cannabis on Capitol Hill today on the Weekly Update. Okay, let's talk cannabis on Capitol Hill. Here's what you need to know. First up, the Senate Banking Committee has cleared the Safer Banking Act. Now, this is important because this is a bipartisan committee, and it's widely anticipated by political pundits that the bill wouldn't have cleared this committee if they didn't have the votes to pass it. And this is important for cannabis because the House has already passed some version of safe banking at least 7 times previously. The Senate was the primary stumbling block, and it's widely believed that this move will lead to a floor vote for the Safe Banking Act and potentially passing by the Senate. It'll then go to the House, where it's expected to pass there as well, and then to the president's desk. And the Biden campaign has already made looking at cannabis a key feature of their campaign. So it looks like we're going to get some movement here. And if you'll remember, we talked about cannabis once before. We have a very small position in cannabis right now. And part of that was our belief that in a contested election like we have, I think we're going to get some regime change. And at the time, I talked about 2 long shots. One was Bitcoin and ETF getting done, and the second was descheduling or rescheduling of cannabis. And I think we're seeing the first signs that that may be occurring. But remember, we've got 2 ways to win. If you look at that old video on regulation change, we've got 2 ways to win this year. One is safe banking, which it looks like that's finally going to be in motion. We'll see how the vote goes in the Senate. But the second way that we can win is the DEA descheduling marijuana, which is going through its own process. And this one's been really quiet, and I think we're going to start to hear more about the DEA descheduling soon. In August of 2023, the HHS recommended to DEA to deschedule marijuana. And basically they said the schedule that it's at now says that marijuana has no therapeutic use, no medical benefit, and they included a whole bunch of scientific studies that show that that's not the case. DEA is now waiting to put out a proposed ruling, but it's been quite some time. This was August of last year, and you've seen pressure from lawmakers on DEA. Hey, where's the ruling? They read HHS, we read all the scientific data. It seems pretty like an open and shut case here, and we're waiting for the DEA ruling. But what's interesting about this one is you can already start to see the fight, sort of the battle lines being drawn. Here's Mitt Romney today, and I think it's interesting that he's putting this out. It's clear that there's motion going on behind the scenes, and so you're starting to see the battle lines get drawn here. But he says in a tweet, to be blunt, rescheduling marijuana may cause the U.S. to violate obligations under the Single Convention on Narcotic Drugs. Efforts to reschedule must be based on evidence, not politics, and we must assure we abide by our treaty commitments. That's pretty good. They've used this historically whenever we've seen this momentum around cannabis, legalization efforts. We've seen the international treaties used numerous times to sort of shoot down any descheduling, any legalization efforts. Hey, we've got these international treaties, we've got to abide by them. And so Romney is absolutely playing into sort of the historical way that this has gone. However, from the last time that this legalization effort has failed, numerous things have changed, and this is part of the reason why I'm so interested in this today. First, in December of 2020, the UN Commission on Narcotic Drugs reclassified cannabis to recognize its therapeutic uses. And so what the UN is doing here is they've seen that they've been, a part of this equation, and so they're stepping out of the way, right? They're recognizing that there is some therapeutic use in cannabis. And so this would be consistent with the US descheduling marijuana from Schedule 1 to 2, or potentially, ideally, what I hope we get is 1 to 3. So the UN sort of stepped out of the way here. So they don't want international treaties to be the reason why states can't legalize. And second, this is something that happened just today. Germany's marijuana legalization bill, officially signed into law, takes effect on Monday. Now, the U.S. isn't going to follow Germany's lead here, but Germany is a signatory to those same international treaties. Didn't stop them. Canada is also a signatory to the UN Single Convention. Didn't stop them either. And so clearly what we're seeing around the world is internationally, legally, there's really no international treaty argument to be made here. UN stepped out of the way, and we're seeing other signatories, sort of legalize marijuana on their own. So what does this all mean, cannabis on Capitol Hill? Well, the Senate is finally moving on safer banking, and that's pretty important. That's a signifier that something is going to happen this year. Personally, I believe that 2 changes are coming to the cannabis market in the next 12 months. We're going to get safer banking, which allows cannabis businesses to touch the financial system, the traditional financial rails. And I think we're also going to get federal descheduling. And I'm giving myself 12 months here. Some things might take, until after the election, maybe to come to fruition, but I think we get both of these, descheduling and safe banking. And if I'm correct, and if regulation changes, it's still an if for right now, I think that this could be transformative for the legal cannabis market. And finally, just a little bit of cold water. The battle hasn't been won yet. In fact, we're going into the fight now, and we can already see the beginnings of the fight. The battle lines are being drawn on Capitol Hill, but I personally am going to be watching it very closely. So there you go. Cannabis on Capitol Hill. We'll take a look on Friday at the Markets Review. Take care. Okay, friends, that was the video. Hope you liked it. If you found it informative, good, entertaining, I'd love if you could scroll down here beneath the video and give me a like there. It helps us out with the algorithm. And then if you want to be notified first of anything new that we upload to the channel, if you come over here, click subscribe, you'll be the first to know as soon as we upload anything. Appreciate it. See you soon.